customer is the only person who puts food on your table. So you better take care of him. And that was the sort of thing that we had in mind as well. So we said, look, we need to give customers what they want. Only then will we get what we want.
Hey guys, welcome to Backstage with Millionaires. I'm Caleb, your host, and today the guest that we have on the show is Ashwin. He's the co-founder of iHaul, which is an intra-city logistics solution designed for small and medium-sized businesses. So I'm curious to know, I think we had talked a little bit about this off camera, but you actually come from a business family, which is how you initially realized that there was a need for iHaul. So just tell me a little bit about how that realization came to be.
Right. So on a day-to-day business, if we are in the manufacturing space, so we have to bring the goods in and send them out. And when we are sending it in large trucks, it's not so much of a problem to send the materials out. But then when I have to send smaller chunks of materials, say anywhere between 100 kgs to about 1 ton, so that's when I actually end up in a lot of challenges, because I need to go to these vehicles that are standing at the industrial townships, and then these guys demand a different fare every time I ask for the shipment.
So there's no like standardized shipping solution?
Not really. Not
at least in Bangalore?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. No, I don't see that anywhere in India right now.
It's just like you walk to the corner that you know they're going to be waiting.
That's right.
These movers and packers, or what do you call them?
So these are just the unorganized sector. It's these vehicles. These drivers buy 1 or 2 vehicles, and then they start getting to know the industries, and then they know that the industries have a requirement. So they approach these industries, and then they try to see if they can get loads for themselves. And in the process, the growth of the vehicles itself is quite huge. When the industry grows at, say, a speed of X, the growth of vehicle is at about 10x. Right? So after about a year or so in a given township, in a given industrial township, the growth, there's so many vehicles, and then the demand is not that much. But on the contrary, even though the demand is not much and the supply is on a higher side, it's a unique problem where you still don't get vehicles when you want them. Because these guys are sort of, I mean, I don't really care. I mean, I've done my buck this morning and I don't have to go back and start working, because this is all I need on my day-to-day, for my day-to-day living. So that's where the challenge for us starts, because I may have a shipment one day in the morning, one day in the afternoon, the next day in the evening. So this is the exact problem that we used to face as an organization itself.
It doesn't sound like a pleasant experience.
Oh, not at all. So this is actually very frustrating most of the times. It's extremely frustrating because I can't go bargain for a new price every time. My customers have already told me that this is the price that I'm going to give you for transportation, and I can't tell them, go back to them every time and say there's a new pricing. So that's when the frustration sets in, and many a times a lot of these vehicles don't even turn up. The drivers just switch off their phones, and then I can't even trace them. So that's how bad it is sometimes.
So wait, you're saying that you lose that shipment, like it just disappears?
It's not with my material. The vehicle doesn't even come in to pick up my material.
Right, okay. And are they sort of accountable once they've picked up the shipment? Like, does that ever happen where it just disappears one day? Or
not really.
No?
Not really. But then the challenge again is I'm handing over my goods to some unknown guy. There's absolutely no trust as such, because there's no organization behind it.
Sure.
So it's somebody whom I know, and I have trusted him so far, so I'll continue to trust him. That's the idea behind me shipping the material.
But then if he, for example, decides to take a little break on his way over to the address where he's supposed to be shipping this item, and wants to have a chai or something, there's nothing you can do.
No, absolutely nothing I can do. And I don't even know whether he has stopped for chai or for something else, or he took a detour to meet a cousin of his. Or
I can't even see his location.
No, absolutely not.
Wow.
No.
So then I guess it really makes sense. I mean, this is a very obvious problem across India, I'm sure, but specifically in Bangalore, and you grew up here as well. So right. What was the first step that you took towards creating iHaul?
Interestingly, the first step towards any business, I think, is a phone call. That's what I did. I called up my friend Murali, who also runs another business of his own, which is in the transportation space for people who work in ITS companies. So all I did was I called him up and I said, look, this is a problem that I face on a day-to-day basis. And I think technology intervention can actually help us solve this problem. Although technology may not actually solve the problem itself, but it could be an enabler to solve the problem. And Murli was game for it. He said he's somebody who doesn't say no. So he said, yeah, I can help you and we can build a system together. And that's how we said, let's start working on it. And we got off on that note.
So you kind of understood the shipping side of things, like what happens on the ground, who are these guys that are actually taking the shipments, and then he understood sort of the tech side of things.
Exactly. He's a pure tech guy, so he's the architect of the whole thing that we've built.
Gotcha.
And then he said he can come up with a solution for this in not much time. He said about 5 to 6 months I should be able to give you something, and then. And the next step, I think, was we hired an Android programmer. So we did that, and then we started.
Android programmer after those 5 to 6 months had passed, or sort of
almost yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Okay.
Within about I think in the 4th month we had that guy because we needed a mobile interface for the ease of operations.
Right.
So
right.
We still don't call ourselves a technology company. We are a company which uses technology to actually enable our operations. Which means my operations are so much faster. I can deliver much better results to the customer.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay, so you then I guess around that time, after 5 to 6 months, you've got your MVP both on the computer and then also on the mobile phones.
Right. That's right. So that's when the actual challenge started, that we need to test it. And what better way to test it than with the customers itself. So we ran out a POC, which is the proof of concept for the whole thing. And we started operating from where we operate, my family business operates. And we ran the POC for almost 7 months, and we had a lot of feedback from a lot of customers. We had a lot of feedback from the drivers who were using this system and all that. So we started incorporating all those changes quickly, making those changes into the system.
What were some of the things that people had noticed that?
Oh, people noticed that a lot of our drivers don't know how to read or write in English. So, right? So how is it that I put a start button on it and then they need to understand to hit the start button? So we started giving different color codes for all these things, so that it's so much easier to explain. And we also made it a little bit of bilingual, so they could use Kannada as well, the local language. And and from the customer end, we had suggestions as small as when the SMS should go to the customer, so that he's not too much perturbed by and he doesn't have to look at his phone very frequently. So those are some of the feedback that we got, and we were able to immediately incorporate.
And then you did like a proper launch after those 7 months.
So we did a proper launch in July of 2017. That's when some members of my family put in some money, and we were able to start off on a small scale. So we started operations in Bangalore then, and we started off with about 4 customers initially, who till today remain loyal customers to us, and then we started the ball rolling, and today we serve about 150 customers across Bangalore.
So between that launch and you raised that round of funding in 2017 until today, I'm sure it's been an exciting journey, and I'm sure it's also been a difficult journey. So I'm curious to know, what are some of the challenges that you guys have faced over the last two-ish years?
Yeah, so the biggest challenge has been raising funds. So that's something in the B2B space. It's not as easy as it is in the B2C, because this is an area where almost there's no data to project. Right. So we did a lot of research to get the data in, and then we spoke to a lot of industry experts and all that. So the biggest challenge, number one, has been raising funds. But I think the bigger challenge for us, we presumed it to be a customer acquisition, but which was not the case. The customers were open and honest about using the service, because they were really frustrated, because they didn't have to go around every time they want to ship anything. All they needed to do was probably pick up their phone, and then the vehicle is there for them.
It's incredible actually how, even if a solution isn't perfect, right? And at this point, you're still at 2017, you guys are still new, maybe no one's really heard of you guys, and probably there's still a couple of things that you need to iron out. But the alternative is so awful, right? Like, for example, I'm just going to compare it to, for example, transportation, right? The difference between me taking an auto from one place in the city to the next, like there's no standardized price, they don't want to turn on their meter, they don't speak English, I don't even know how to tell them where I need to go, versus Uber. It's like automatically, boom, I don't have to think about it, I hit the destination, I hit okay, confirmed, I'm good. Right? So I think probably that's what your customers were experiencing. Absolutely. As well.
And something that we were very clear from day one, Murali and myself, was that at the end of the day, it is the customer that we need to serve, right? And like Narayan Murthy of Infosys says that customer is the only person who puts food on your table. So you better take care of him. And that was the sort of thing that we had in mind as well. So we said, look, we need to give customers what they want. Only then will we get what we want. So that's what reinforced everything into this. My second biggest challenge has been to get my sales team to go and do those door knockings on every industry that there is, because they get tired, and to keep them motivated has been a continuous challenge. I'm sure we will continue to face this. So we have come up with some innovative strategies where the customers refer and they get something as a referral bonus. And my most important ambassadors of my company are my driver partners who are these vehicle owners. Right, so they are the biggest ambassadors, because at the end of the day, finally they are the people who are giving the service. So we started training them on a regular basis. So they have a quarterly training program that we run, and there's a lot of polishing that happens on how they speak, on what they need to tell their customer, and how to say no when we don't want to do something, and still make the customer understand that okay, this is actually right.
I think that's for me the most interesting side of things. Like, you've gone from these corner groups of people like sitting on the corner waiting for someone to come and ask them for a shipment, right? And they're all competing with each other, to sort of like an organized process where you're working with partners, you're training them. How, that journey from people on the corner to here must have been sort of an interesting one. Like, how did you do that?
Yeah, so there's a lot of resistance again there as well, because they said, why should I come and participate with you? I mean, I'm anyway doing what I want to do. So we gave them the picture on the other side on how probably in what are you going to be doing in another 5 years time, right? You won't have the same energy to go look for a customer and then go pick up the payments and then go deliver the material, and then you'll end up doing all these things, and there may be other larger players whom you may not be able to compete with. So what's your plan of action in the next 5-10 years? And then obviously they drew a blank, and that's when we said, look, we have a vision and we want you to participate in this vision. And that's when they subscribed to the idea. And so far, I think even my first vehicle that we onboarded back in for my POC in 2016, I think he's still a part of the organization in one way or the other. So we try to retain people for a longer time, because that's a culture that we want to bring in even when retaining a customer as well.
Sure. Because as you were saying, like, customer is king, but I think it's also very important to make sure that the people that are actually creating the foundation of your company, which are the drivers, are also happy and satisfied as well. But coming back to the customer, I'm going to put you on the spot here. I'm curious to know, maybe if you could give 3 tips to other entrepreneurs who are maybe in a similar space, their company is relying on customer satisfaction. What would you say to them? What advice have you learned over the years in terms of keeping your customers happy and satisfied?
So the number one thing is always listen to them. So if you don't listen to them, you won't, and then don't answer to them as a reaction to it, but listen the whole story and then give them whatever possible solution. And while doing so, please be very honest about your solution. You can't be saying something and doing something else. So I think those are the things those are very important when talking to a customer.
Sure.
That's what I have learned. So
great advice. Yeah, I think too often people want to defend their business, and at that point you've already said the customer is wrong. I'm right. Right, and the customer is not. And then also lying about your business. If you use a solution once or twice, you're going to automatically know what that process entails. You're going to know whether that's a lie or not, right? So
just to quote something here, a few of our customers in the small light commercial goods segment in which we operate, we don't have any overloads or overhanging materials that go. So we see that often on the roads that there's something that is overhanging with a piece of cloth tied to it. So just don't come near me and you can get poked or whatever. So we don't do any of those things. So we are clear from day one with the customer that we don't overload the vehicle. Whatever is the capacity of the given vehicle, that's what we allow them to use. And then we also don't have any overhanging stuff in the vehicle, which means the safety is of utmost concern of the material and of the people around my vehicle. So that's something that we consciously take care of.
I'm sure for your customer, the concern is more on whether the material or the object is going to be destroyed. But I mean, I'm a person who drives a two-wheeler around everywhere, right? So I'm always nervous about these trucks that have these huge stacks of material on top, and one wrong turn and the whole thing is gonna...
absolutely. So and we see that often on the roads as well. So
does that happen often?
Oh yeah. So we've seen that happen. So what we also go one step ahead and do is we have insured everything that is transported through iHaul. So that is something that the moment any goods gets loaded onto my vehicle or iHaul's platform or the vehicles of iHaul, it immediately means that the goods are assured in terms of insurance. So any damage to the goods is something that we are taking responsibility for that as well.
That's great.
So that's where my training of our training that we impart to our drivers is that much more important, because we don't want to end up paying huge damages to either the insurance company or the customers themselves.
Sure. You've sort of taken the responsibility on yourself to say it's our job to make sure that your goods get to where they're going in one piece.
That's right. So this is why we always say that technology for us is an enabler, not the crux of the operations. The operations is still what we do to serve the customer.
Gotcha. So that was sort of 2017 when you had sort of officially launched the product. Now we're here at the tail end of 2019.
Right.
How have things been going so far?
We're growing at about 40% year on year. So that's very encouraging. And even though in the last 5-6 months, I think we have had a sort of a slowdown in the manufacturing segment in India. But for iHaul, the journey has been smooth. We've been able to acquire new customers. We've been able to serve the old customers the same way. And in fact, now it makes more sense for them to use iHaul because we are also more cost effective than what it is in the market. So that way, I think we are in the right space. What we are looking at right now is to scale up and probably be present in 36 cities across India that we've seen where this can be implemented basically.
Where would you say things are going in the next, say, 2, 3, 4 years in terms of logistics and transportation of goods, and also specifically iHaul? Where are things going for the company as well?
Right. So I think in India it's only going to go up. So there's no doubt about that. Right now, I think a lot of surveys say that India spends about 19% of its GDP on the logistics itself, and there's a mandate to reduce it to about 9%. I think we can play a big role, and we have some data that probably nobody else has, which says that the intra-city logistics space is spending only about 3% of the value of the goods that is transported. So this is the kind of data that we are generating, and I'm sure this will be useful taking it forward. But overall space in the logistics, I think the third-party logistics space is going to make a big thing, that's going to be the next big thing in India, where somebody else is going to handle the warehousing and the transportation itself. And overall for iHaul, the picture is very clear. We want to capture about 20% of the market. We see the market size of about anywhere between 1100 to 1200 crores in India, growing at about 20% year on year. So we want to be with at least 20% of that market in say about 2.5-3 years time.
So if you guys want to know more about Ashwin or his company iHaul, I'll be leaving a couple of links down below. You can check those out. And if you have any questions about him, about his journey as an entrepreneur, about his company, feel free to leave a comment down below. And if there's a couple of good ones, I might reach out to you, Ashwin, directly and just ask you to respond to some of the best ones if there's a couple of them.
Absolutely.
And then also I would love it, guys, if you could share this video with anybody that you think would be interested in it, people that are interested in startups, entrepreneurship, logistics, shipping, really anything that we've covered in this video. thank you so much for watching this episode. And thank you, Ashwin, for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. All right. Shall we go up? Yeah?
We could do that.
How was that? Was that good?
Oh, that's good. Yeah. A lot of insights, actually.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's very, I do things off the cuff most of the time. I just ask questions as they come.
This is the first time I've ever done anything like this.
Yeah, yeah.